haven't been there, I highly recommend it. But I figured we'd just take a look at this one. It stuck out to me. This appears to be a second revision where someone got a little bit of feedback and went ahead and made another post. So this should be a little cleaner. Overall, when I look at it, I feel like all the typical formatting issues that get pointed out are mostly missing here. It seems like they've made good use of the margins. The dates are aligned. The headings, I think, are very clear to spot, and they're distinct. They don't clutter up the page. Does anyone here see anything that I might not with regards to formatting?
Education has a line under it, but work experience does not.
It does. It's very faint.
Oh, when you zoomed in, it got bigger.
Yeah, I think there was a bit of a resolution issue there with me being zoomed in and out. I see Grayson saying, if possible, larger name font at the top. Colors of the lines are off. That might just be me being zoomed in and out. But yeah, I think the name could be a little larger. I think if they really need the space, that's an okay size. Bless you know to look at the top of the page for the name.
I think that they could probably like left align the name and put the contact on the right align and sort of, I don't know. I don't like losing a whole line to the name. And I am still an advocate of putting all of the university information on a single line.
Yeah, I'll put I'll at least say if more space is needed. Because I'll slightly disagree in that I don't think it's that important unless you really need the space. And while they are quite full here, let me change the background actually so we can see the limits of the page. We'll do a nice baby blue. Look at that. It does look like it's pretty well filled out here. So they might be hurting for space. So we'll say left align. And all of this can go, how do I want to do that? To the right. Is that kind of what you were thinking, Jade?
Yeah. And then they can just kind of shuffle that all down onto one line. Unless their name is something super long. That should work out fine. And you can even have the name, slightly bigger still. It'll stand out to the top left. People's eyes are going to go first.
I'm not sure I follow. What's going to go first?
The name. The name's going to be in the top left. So that's right where people's eyes land.
Oh,
in the beginning.
Eyes.
Yeah.
I was thinking like the letter I.
No, your human eyeball. In the Western countries, top left corner of the page where you start.
Fair enough. Okay, I do think there's no harm in that. Grayson, I think, makes a good point. If the GPA is above 3, to include that. I think there's some disagreement there. Throw that pen down. Overall, I think this setup is okay. I don't really care whether or not you have city-state here, but at least it lines up with the university and the degree. I think the order is strange, but I don't really think it matters what's on top or bottom.
I just find city-state redundant. I mean, most places, yeah, they might have a satellite campus, but is it really that important?
That is true. Unless I think it could be worth it if you're. Well, I was going to say if you're applying local, but if you're local, I guess they know where the university is, don't they? Plus, it is state, so you got half of it right there. Let's see. GPA could probably go next to University of State. right? Because it's probably going to be their overall GPA anyway. I see Grayson agrees. Work experience they got at the bottom, so I guess they're very proud of their projects, which is good. I think our consensus here is still that you want your most relevant work up top, even if it's your projects before your work experience. We can take a look at what exactly they were employed for.
Only if your work experience is trash, which it looks like tutoring. So although it's a noble profession, it's not really a strong experience.
Right, it's just not as strong. Let's see, Arduino PID temperature controller. I do like that one right off the bat, just by the name. They say they created a heating circuit using an Arduino and a temperature detection circuit using a thermistor. Okay, so the Arduino heated it, and then they also had a thermometer, basically. I agree, Sways. Specify how they tune the PID. That's kind of a big part of this sort of project, right? Is you want something that's going to be quick and efficient. It's not going to bounce around. Tuning this is very important. Let's see. Grayson also says, I feel like the font size of the sections is very close to the size of the project and work experience descriptions. Just like two more difference, I feel like would be cleaner. So you're saying like make the headers a slightly larger font?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, and there's a good amount of space above and below, so I feel like you could take out the space that's below to make this a larger font. I think that would look a bit better.
I find trying to remove the space makes things look weird, but you can do some creative stuff in the paragraph formatting. So instead of like a full space, you can do like 0.7 of a space, and so you still end up with a gap, but it's not. It's different. It's better.
Yeah. I don't mean to say take out the gap entirely, but you could take some of that space. Or reduce text size. I don't think I would suggest that. This looks to me like 12 point. You could go down to 11, but I'd rather suggest someone do that to fit more content on a page rather than to make the formatting look better.
You can go up on the headers too. You don't have to go down on the content.
Yeah, I think that's what he meant. You could do one or the other, but I think I would suggest going up on the headers first. All right. See, they also developed a MATLAB script that automated step test and data processing to produce PID tuning constants. Oh, all right, hang on. Well, they answered the question right there, didn't they? Sways, what do you think about having that come immediately after the point? Do you think those should be combined? Because I could see that just being one 2-line bullet point. I think they could clean up the phrasing of both of these a little bit, cut it down to about 1.5 lines. Or whoever. Grayson agrees. Let's see. Implemented a closed loop PID controller, tested tuning parameters for a closed loop PID controller, testing tuning parameters for disturbance rejection and set point change. Sway's couldn't hear. I think Grayson's going to fill you in. I'm basically asking if the first two bullet points could be combined, because it looks like the second one answers your question of how it was tuned. And the third one, actually. Because here they're tuning the parameters after they've gotten their tuning constants. And then tuning parameters required no adjustment given expected set point change in disturbance rejection performance. So it seems like they found some parameters, they tested for it, and they got lucky, or they just did it right the first time, but there wasn't much optimization to be made from their initial constants. I'd just keep them all and probably remove the fourth bullet point. I do agree. I feel like you have 3 bullet points here. That this person has 3 bullet points that are basically saying I tuned the PID controller, which is great because, like I said, that's kind of the important part here. But you could certainly drop one of them. Maybe combine second and third. Yeah, I think you could do that. In fact, I think I would prefer seeing that here because the third one goes a little more into detail of how the second was done. And likewise the second and the first, but I think it's enough removed that it can be its own bullet point. Capital, maybe? I'm not sure I understand, Grayson. No adjustment. Because what I'm seeing here is our, capital maybe. As in maybe combine second and third. I see. I gotcha. Well, I am split here because this is a lot that they're saying here, but what I'm seeing is the kind of star formatting, right? They have the situation, they're controlling temperature, they got some feedback, that's good, and their task. They got the action of how they tuned it, or the action was that they tuned it, and they explain how they tuned it, and they include the results here in the 4th bullet point, saying everything was good, we didn't really need to make any improvements. So I would like to see all this information, just maybe not necessarily in 4 bullet points. You feel like the last point almost makes it weaker. Perhaps. I'm a little rusty on my control theory, and I wasn't very good at it to begin with, but I mean, what would you think would have made it stronger? Or what would be different to make you feel impressed? Would you rather it say, yeah, we made it better? Or is there something else you're looking for?
Honestly, if he's doing this, I don't think there's any need. Bullet point because it's not really adding anything. And in control theory, there's only really one goal, and that's regulation. I think that's a big one still. Maybe somehow indicate that it worked, but that explanation is weird.
Okay. And Grayson says it's not implemented in a specific system, which would make it sound more impressive, but it just says, well, it worked the first time. So I kind of agree with you. It is in a specific system, right? We know it's in a temperature controller, and I feel like we kind of dropped the temperature control part in the later bullet points. So I think what we could say instead is just reword this to talk about how effective the temperature control was, right? How quickly did it reach a desired set point, and how much variation was there beforehand?
Including any sort of requirements he was trying to get to. So settling time, is there, did he include dampening? Did he include what was the response time? I think those are really important when we talk about this. When you design controllers, your literally whole point is to design to certain requirements. So PID, usually like your settling time, overshoot percent, and response time.
I did have a hard time hearing some of that, but
use a different headphone.
Maybe it's kind of cutting in a little bit. We were having that issue earlier with Schrodinger's pig, and I think maybe it could just be like a Discord issue right now, since that's 2 for 2 or 2 for 3. Jade's doing good.
All right, how about now?
Oh, that's way better.
Yeah. Apple headphones don't really work well.
Logitech, baby. Not a sponsor.
All right. Sorry. So we were talking about requirements. You were saying
Yeah,
every set
for
point, maybe?
for PIDs, usually you want to see overshoot percent or overshoot limit, settling time, and response time.
Okay. What was that first one?
Overshoot percent.
Oh, overshoot. Yes.
Yeah.
You're right.
It just shows that the design was done through some requirements, and if it wasn't, then you don't really include it. You just keep it to this. But it's better to have this if you've done this. If you've done it to these kind of requirements. Hopefully that was the case.
Is the owner of this resume here?
No, this was grabbed from a subreddit, from the engineering resume subreddit. I just grabbed it, didn't say anything to them. Is there something that you would have liked to have asked them?
Yeah. I'm just wondering if I'd find it really surprising if there was nothing more substantial that they did to put on this, like undergrad research or something like that, TAing a class, you know?
I don't know. I feel like this is fairly typical, right? An internship or TA experience, something like that would be nice, but I don't know how unusual it is to really only have your projects here. And their GPA is left off, so it is possible that they weren't doing so great as to be in a position to be a TA or to have good luck finding internships.
I also kind of want to know if they have any other experience that, maybe they didn't think was relevant, but if they had like a good block, like 3 or 4 years working anywhere in a nice solid chunk, I would have liked to seen that.
I agree.
What's going on?
Heavily. Yeah, I agree heavily with that. Just being able to show up for work every day, right, is kind of a huge thing. A lot of people can go into college right after high school, and then they've never worked. They graduate and they've never worked. So I agree with that.
Well, I think we can still argue that some other work experience would be better, but I do see in their tutoring experience, they have almost 2 years here. So they did their junior and senior year tutoring, and it looks like they did it at a private school. So it wasn't like they tutored on campus, I presume. They went to maybe a high school or something like that and helped out there. I don't know if maybe that addresses your concern, or if y'all want to come back to it when we get done with the projects.
Yeah, that's fine. I was kind of just more seeing if potentially the person was here to ask them, right? Because we can only speculate.
Right. That was the original point. Thank you. Yeah, we can only speculate this time. So looking at the next project, we have a robotic arm state space controller. So they simulated this arm in MATLAB and Simulink. They calculated controller gains from real world data. Maybe this is my ignorance coming through, but I don't really know what real world data they could be getting that from.
First off, the title is not correct. He's not creating a technically it's a state space controller, but he's using a LQR. So this is more of an optimal controller. He should write that. They would kind of look at this as something that should be changed. If it's like a controls position in a chemical plant or something, it should be called robotic arm optimal controller.
I'm going to have to take your word on that.
Yeah, state space is just the modeling, but it's not the actual control.
Okay. See, would you mind making a note of that in the chat? Because I think I would like to share this back onto the subreddit, and I think it'd be good to have that note added on there as to why this was changed from state space to optimal.
Sure. The second bullet point should also be first. Second and third should be first and second. And then the first bullet point should be third bullet point as well.
Okay. Well, let me read out in the order they have it, and I'll just
Sure.
go ahead and run through them all, and we'll see. Because I haven't read it. I trust you're right. I just haven't read it myself. They simulated the arm, right? And they simulated controller response. Then they say they developed a linear quadratic regulator for a mechanical arm, allowing for optimal response, while allowing user specified parameters such as arm speed, accuracy, and input. That's nice. And did this in Simulink. And then produced a full order observer to simulate estimated process variables that could not be measured. It sounds to me like you could almost replace the first bullet point with these other two, or drop the first rather. But you're saying it should come third, I presume, because that's more chronological?
Yeah, I wouldn't replace the first bullet point because the second and third one are a little bit different than what he has in the first one. Yeah, the chronological order, because I think when you're writing something like this, you're going the process you went through. And the process for LQR is usually you have a problem, you develop a model, and then you develop controller for it, you develop a observer, and then you have simulate essentially. But what he has is I simulated, then I modeled it and controlled it, and then developed another model, and then compared my results. So it's all mixed up. So it'll be better to actually start with them developing the problem, the models, control, and then simulation and results.
I think that makes sense. I'm not sure if there could be an argument here for trying to rearrange the order of things to keep what's most, I guess, impressive or most relevant up towards the top.
And even in that case, the second bullet point would be the most impressive here.
All right. And then the fourth is they compared actual response to simulation, finding minimal to no difference between the arm response and prediction. So apparently they did a good job. I would like to see a value here. You know, when they say minimal to no difference, I guess I'd like. Yeah,
the biggest thing that's missing here is that the goal of this project is actually not written anywhere. The developing a controller for a robotic arm. The point is to make it do something. Is it to pick and place? Is it to do some sort of acrobatics? So that part is actually not clear. And I say that because when you are doing LQR, it's optimal control. That means you have an optimization problem, hence a cost function. That cost function means I'm trying to regulate something. Now, what is this something? Are you trying to do the pick and place really fast? Or is this a timing, minimizing a time? Are you minimizing or maximizing your speed? Or what are you trying to do? And it doesn't really say anything about that.
I'm a little confused here. I mean, do you think that they developed a reverse kinematics algorithm, or
they would have to? If they're, since it's a state-space controller, they would have to have at least some sort of like inverse kinematics or forward kinematics, depending on what they're doing.
I mean, that would be the most impressive thing to me.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's also missing too. So the type of robot as well.
Yeah, how many axes is it, right?
Yeah, how many axes and what kind of joints? Was it rotational, prismatic? Is it a actual robot? What kind of grip? Did it have a gripper? Did it have a hand? Whatever. So, yeah, what kind of robot? How did you develop your model? So was it kinematics?
Yeah, I think asking them if they developed a reverse kinematics algorithm would be a really good question. Because if that's true, I mean, that's a pretty huge undertaking as far as I know.
Even and if they didn't specify if they used like a pre-made package for this kind of stuff, which is available. and he's pretty used heavily. There's no shame in it.
MATLAB will kind of do it for you, but there's still some work involved.
There is a toolbox by Peter Cork where you specify like starting and ending positions, and it will just give, and you tell them what kind of robot you have. And it will essentially give out your entire kinematic chain equation. However, if they didn't use it, that's even more impressive, especially if they coded it.
All right. Now, did I miss anything? I also got a little distracted on the side here, but do y'all think this is fine? It's just their issue is that they don't have enough details here.
I think they just have the wrong details.
I think that's a fair criticism.
Like I'm not saying what they did wasn't awesome. I just think they're not expressing it well.
Yeah,
I do agree.
I also there's a I don't know what the words. It's not a typo, but it says full order observer. It should be full state observer. It's more commonly known as full state, but I think I know what they're talking about. Full state means it's a deterministic problem. It's not stochastic.
I'm so glad you're here tonight, both of y'all. Okay, then. I do agree. It would be nice if they included the other information. It seems like they could condense these bullet points down to, hey, I had a arm. Who knows where I got it from? And then I simulated the arm, and the simulation matches what the arm does given these variables. But
yeah, I mean, even if they came up with an arm, just like a concept of an arm that didn't actually exist, just stating the types of joints or the type of robot it would give the reader a lot more information about what went on.
yeah, because this could be a very simple arm. It could be like a little 2-joint piece that just pivots around.
Yeah, but even so, if they did a custom algorithm for that 2-joint arm, I mean, that's not bad.
No.
Yeah, and that last bullet point,
it'd be good to say so.
Paired actual response to simulation finding minimal to no difference between difference in what?
That's
So
kind of
is
what I
this-
was saying earlier.
What is minimal? But yeah, anyways.
Is he doing model predictive control here? What
No.
prediction?
So the full order, the full state observer, it's a feedback to your controller that estimates a state. I call them filters, but this is not stochastic; it's deterministic. That means you know exactly what your model and your system is, and you just estimate it.
And so he's comparing the prediction of his controller to the arm response being simulated.
So the response simulation and comparison is not with the prediction; it's more so the measurement. So what's happening is that he has a model, he has a controller, he has an observer, and what the observer means is that you have some sort of measurement, velocity, or some sort of sensor. Is it a positional sensor? Is it an accelerometer that measures where your robotic arm is? We predict the states of the arm. So the states would be like the joint angles. And then that is fed into the controller to do whatever tasks it is set to do. In this case, it's an LQR controller. And
Okay.
so
Yeah,
you have some optimization, and the optimization says, I want to reduce so-and-so states to get a certain response. So his actual response is like, all right, did I follow a trajectory or not? So it would be like a trajectory of an arm, and then did he follow that or not?
Okay, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. But I think the
Yeah.
take-home point is shouldn't have to have the conversation we're having right now, right?
Depends on what they're trying to focus on. If they're trying to focus on the control part, then yes. If not, then no. So
Okay. Thank y'all again for speaking up on that. Oh, we got this Toppings Refinery design next. And just from the name alone, I don't really know what that means.
I was going to say, am I stupid? What is that?
Yeah, I would like the name to be a little more descriptive, and hopefully reading into it, we can figure this out. But it looks like they designed components of a Toppings refinery, including main reactor, solvent extractor, distillation columns, and heat exchangers. So I'm assuming now that the topping is some sort of like sauce or a sweet of some sort.
My mind was not going there, but you're probably right.
Yeah, maybe they made chocolate.
Toppings Refinery. The simplest refinery configuration, called a topping refinery, is designed to prepare feedstocks for petrochemical manufacturer for production of industrial fuels in remote oil production areas. Consists of a tankage, a distillation unit, recovery facilities for gases, light hydrocarbons, and a bunch of other stuff.
Okay. I guess I'd never heard that name before, but maybe it's an O&G thing.
Yeah, it sounds like it might be. Well, hopefully whoever's
I'm sure
reading-
it was named after a Mr. or Dr. Topping.
I kind of hope not. I feel like there
Not
could
to be
be
confused with Dr. Pepper.
exactly. Yeah, there's some interesting diagrams that go with this Google search. Okay, so it is a thing. We just didn't know that it was a thing. Topping is sort of like a category of a plant, so that's good. Right.
I mean, if we didn't immediately recognize what it was, maybe that's worth mentioning.
Well, I would say no. If you are in industry, you shouldn't have to do that. Like somebody actually like defined MOSFET, like you metal oxide. I don't even remember. Like they put the whole spelled out thing in their resume. Like when you're in industry, you shouldn't have to do that. So we are going to assume that they are targeting somebody who would know what that is.
Perhaps. Yeah, I think if they were to apply outside of oil and gas, that would be a problem. You know, someone who's reading this might not know what a Toppings refinery is, but I don't think that would necessarily affect the bullet points. So while the name might be confusing, I think what they actually did will be just as strong. So with that in mind, they design components, including main reactor, solvent extractor, distillation columns, and heat exchangers. I don't know how I feel about them listing everything out.
Did they mean designed or size?
I mean, it can be both. There's a little more that goes into, I guess, designing these things than just sizing them, right? I mean, you gotta figure out what temperatures you want to run the reboiler at, the condenser, what flow rates you need within those. If you're extracting solvent, you want to know what concentration you want your, I'm assuming they're recycling that, what you want your recycle loop to be at. Plus the main reactor, I would like them to say this if they don't already say it below, but they could have had to determine what type of reactor they want to use, not just size it. Maybe there's a catalyst that goes into it. If they did do any of that, I think it should be in here. But I feel like this is a weaker point than it otherwise could be, just saying they designed it. I'd like to know how.
I think I would prefer maybe two bullet points instead of this one, and pick two of those things that were the most difficult and go into a little detail about what went into it personally.
I'll say that. I'll say add detail. and maybe. Oh my God. And maybe break into 2 bullet points, right? I'm going to have to come back after and clean this up. Created a linked simulation of the refinery in Aspen Plus. Fine. I'm not sure I understand what linked means in this context. Do y'all know what that might be?
I mean,
I don't even know what Aspen Plus is.
I would just assume that they're saying they're doing a whole PFD and all the unit operations are linked and working.
Yeah, if that is what they mean, I think I would suggest taking out the word linked. That's kind of a given, especially if you're specifying the whole refinery already. That makes it redundant in my eyes.
Yeah, there's definitely a better way to say that. Maybe validated the process flow in Aspen, something, I don't know.
I take out linked and say,
oh yeah, that looks great. Yeah, created a simulation of the refinery in Aspen Plus. Yeah.
Sure.
I wonder why they're not using HYSYS.
it could just be what their school's pushing, right? Because HYSYS wasn't an option for me. We had to use Aspen Plus for a senior design project. Speaking of which, I don't see a senior design project, and I noticed earlier all of these were done last semester.
This has to be it, kiddo.
A 1 semester project, though, amidst 3 other projects?
Well, we don't know what school that was, or the rigor of what that school is known for.
This has to be his capstone. Are they graduated?
Yes, it says they just graduated in May this year.
That has to be his capstone.
Yeah, if anything, I think you're right, because this is the only refinery kind of project they have here.
I mean, maybe he had other classes that were working up to this, and this was just the last semester of the project.
Yeah.
If so, because mine was kind of like that. My capstone was 2 semesters. If they're working up to it in a consistent manner, like they're not just starting from scratch, then I think this should be listed, that this date should be extended.
I also think based on the experience they have so far, that this should be higher on the list of things.
Yeah, especially if they are targeting oil and gas or anyone who would know what a Toppings refinery is, then this is probably their most relevant experience. I do. Oil and gas. Other. So we don't.
You know what I don't like about it is they don't have anything about it being team based. Do you know what I mean?
That's true. If this was their capstone, then it was probably in a team.
And that's where you want to showcase your soft skills and, I mean, just in general,
Yeah, this does raise a few questions about what they were doing in their semester then, or with this project.
I noticed all of these are from the last semester as well. Did they not do any projects in any other semesters?
I think they might have been sweating about getting a job and not having a very filled out resume. We'll put it that way.
Well, still, that would that would almost make this way more impressive to me, right? Because no matter how you slice it, they're saying that they did all 4 of these projects in a semester. And while none of them, I would say, are really that in depth, they show some actual work was done, and that though they don't talk about it in great detail, they had some promising results. So
I'd put a note, Chase, about having a portfolio to go along with this. I'd like to see some pictures of this refinery and maybe the robot arm.
I think that's pretty non-standard to include, though.
No, you guys don't do portfolios.
I don't think so.
We've been wanting to do one for a WrestleMania sometime, but
Yeah.
it seems like so few people have one.
I
will
mean,
say,
maybe
though,
not a formal portfolio, but something to carry with you into an interview to pull out and show off.
Oh
yeah, I mean, definitely. I think having like a one-liner in the resume that says, if you have questions about the project, please let me know. I can answer them. I can send you the portfolio, something like that.
I do disagree with that. I feel like you could have a portfolio, maybe a website or something, but I don't think you should say in your experience, if you have any questions, let me know. If for no other reason, then that's kind of a given, right?
Yeah.
At least when I go to interviews, that's usually the only thing that's discussed is, tell me more about this experience. What did you do? How did you work with people?
Agreed. My school pushed Wix as a portfolio site. It was okay. I never actually used it as a portfolio. I just threw stuff in there because it was required for the class. But your mileage may vary.
So is that just like somewhere where it's, pre-built and you upload some stuff on there and then you got a link to give people, or?
Yeah. It's a template, and it's pretty easy to navigate, and it's got buttons and stuff on it, and you can like clone the button and then upload files into the buttons. And so I had like a button for each of my courses, and you could click and see the course final project. Each one you clicked on, it was usually like a PowerPoint slide we had to make of like what we did in the course, and then it just pulled up all the PowerPoints, look at them. I mean, you could do something fancier, but I was just doing the minimum requirements. And then it's a static link when you publish it, and then you can just send it to people, and people can take a look at it.
Yeah, that might be cool. Like in your personal information up at the top, personal website, have the link.
I've been thinking about putting one together on WordPress myself.
I don't think anybody would look at it, though, to be honest.
No. Well, maybe. I mean, there's a chance they might. I think it's good to have that for the same sort of reasoning of why you might have a sort of master copy resume that can be more than one page, but you tailored to your job applications. In the same way, a portfolio could be something, even if it's just for you, to pull from and say, oh yeah, here's this project that I did, or here, let me print out this image or this graph rendering, whatever, some details about a project that we might discuss in an interview. So that could be a resource for you. Or you could put it up in your LinkedIn, and who knows, people might actually click on that. I will say, when I'm applying for jobs, or when I have applied for jobs, I frequently see the option to upload not just a cover letter, but also, hey, put a link here to your LinkedIn or some portfolio or website, or upload a portfolio. So that is something that some companies at least give you the option to include.
You learn something every day.
I think LinkedIn does have some capacity to put something in it. I haven't really played with it too much, but it's changed over the last few years, and they've added some more capabilities.
Yes, you can list projects. You can put up a little cover photo and list some bullet points. There's not nearly as much flexibility as having a website, but it's certainly a easy first step.
Back to what's in front of us, though. I think the first, second, and third points are kind of redundant, and I would much prefer them having a 3 detailed bullet points about specific unit operations, and just a little more detail about what they did with those unit operations. Do you agree with that?
I do. I was kind of thinking the same thing too, especially when your second bullet point here is just saying that you created the simulation. Well, if you're doing a sensitivity analysis, and not necessarily if you designed, but you can include it in there saying you designed it in Aspen Plus, or just saying that you used it to do the sensitivity analysis. This could all be tied together. I think you're right.
Also, I have no idea. I mean, what was their feedstock? What? I don't know.
Oh, that's true. That's true. So yeah, for my capstone, we were given here's your incoming components. Here's like the flow rate, and this is defined. You are getting it whether you like it, whether you use it. This is what you have.
It's coming out of the fire hose.
It's coming out of the fire hose, and you better be spitting out product. Yeah, no, that's a great point. Let me put it on the other side. Yeah, I don't see them talking about the products either. I guess more specifically than feeds and products, I'd be interested in knowing their overall yield and selectivity. I think that might be slightly better metrics.
Yeah, for sure. But definitely just some information about what the process actually was, you know?
Right. I do see that they have a savings listed down here. So at least they have some value, but that does seem like something where they stuck a value. Actually,
I'm going to be honest, that means nothing to me. I don't know. I mean, 250K of savings, depending on your flow rate of input, that could be negligible or that could be awesome.
Annually, I think that's probably pretty good for the size of a capstone project. But like you said, you don't really know. Question mark.
I mean, if it's a $10 billion plant or whatever, well, I guess it's probably not because it's a topping plant, but there's just no basis for what that means, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think this is a great opportunity to have a percentage instead. I reduced utility costs by 20%. But again, compared to what? Were you given a plant and now you're optimizing it? I'm not really sure what you're saying.
That's what I'm confused. Did they pick a plant and try and recreate it?
Or maybe it could be compared to the previous semester, right? Because again, for my capstone, it was 2 semesters. And in the first semester, we basically designed a plant. And then in the second semester, the goal was to optimize it and also consider alternative. Yeah, exactly. Oh my goodness, what was I writing? Savings. Oh, compared to what?
And again, with the last point, I think that would be a perfect point to replace with the yield and selectivity that, like you were talking about.
Oh, yep. So what criteria? Yeah, for me, it wasn't so much meet a specific criteria as it was, hey, is this profitable? And if so, how profitable can it be? So I guess your criteria would be make the most money. But it wasn't necessarily like you could have terrible yield, but if somehow you made that make money, go for it. Okay. So now that we've raised a bunch of questions about this refinery, let's look at this nanoparticle detection and measurement. They characterized nanoparticle response to UV to visible spectrometry. Goodness, I'm sorry. Over a range of concentrations. Okay.
That looks like undergraduate research experience to me.
That or could just be a lab. Oh, hang on. Let's see what the rest of it says. They utilize integrated measurements to determine nanoparticle concentration without clear absorption peak. I'm not really sure what's being added here. They did a response, right? And I guess they used that response to determine the concentration. I mean, if that's what they're doing, I think they could combine that into one line. Or am I misunderstanding this?
I just don't have an overall grasp of what they were doing. Concentration of what?
What's this guy's degree in? These seem to be all over the place, these projects.
He has the wonderful, versatile degree of chemical engineering, thank you.
Talk some shit. No, you're not going to take that?
Well, I mean, am I crazy? I mean, we're going from programming to robotics to
No, these are
refineries.
These are actually all relevant shit that we learned, believe it or not.
Yeah, I do. Now, the robotic arm, I think, is a little out there. But, yeah, I mean, the rest of this isn't really out of character, in my opinion.
It's control theory, though, right? I mean, if you're going to do a project with control theory, that's,
Well, I think the temperature control does that a little bit better, at least in what's stated here in the resume.
Robots are cool, though. Maybe he was interested in it.
Well, yeah, I mean, robots are cool. It's just thematically, I was getting whiplash.
We have no theme, okay?
Well, I think, Jade, you raised a good point here, because say they are targeting a career in oil and gas. I don't think this is the right order to list things. If they're looking to be a process engineer, I don't think this is the right order to list things. If they're looking to be a mechanical engineer, maybe this is the right order to list things.
I mean, to be frank, and since they're not here, I can be frank. I don't think they got a snowball's chance in hell in oil and gas.
No, but they know what a Toppings refinery is.
I mean, with no internship though, and no 4.0 on the, you know what I mean? Like oil and gas is crazy.
That could be fair. I have no idea how competitive the industry is.
Oh, it's super competitive, like the most competitive.
Well, maybe that was something that they were.
More money, more problems.
More money, more problems. More gas, more problems.
That's the truth.
Well, maybe they were leaning oil and gas earlier on, and then they kind of realized either they weren't probably going to have a good chance, or they just changed their minds.
I mean, I think that comes back to Jade's point. Like, it's not clear what industry they're targeting, right?
Right. I think if they are targeting some sort of control position, particularly more guided towards mechanical engineering, then this is an okay setup here. But I don't know.
Chase, I just wanted to point out Sway's just dropped a bunch of stuff for you to put on Reddit later in the chat. Don't worry about reading it now, but just letting you know it's there.
Thank you. Yes. I'm going to learn some things. Okay. Well, I've not actually marked anything up here on the nanoparticle detection and measurement. So let's see. They also produced a calibration curve for nanoparticles to be used in future research. So this does actually seem to be undergraduate research of some kind. And they wrote a Python program that automates data processing tasks, including making calibration curves, graphs, and fitting measurements to existing data. I don't know. I'm not impressed by this one. Not because I don't think it's cool and useful, but because to me that seems like something that probably already exists, and they're saying, hey, I wrote a thing instead of using a easy to find library.
Yeah, I see down in their skills they mention, some stuff that hasn't shown up in their descriptions either. Like they don't really mention R, and they don't mention SolidWorks. So should try to pull some reference of how good you are at that into your experiences.
Oh my
God. I agree with that. Take this, how you want, Chase, because you've got the power of the pen here. But I mean, I'd really like them to just be more specific with that whole fourth piece of experience there about what exactly they were characterizing and why they were doing it. I mean, if it's for a homogeneous catalyst, that could be something that's really valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's I think this is a chronic case of not having enough detail. I hope I didn't make it sound too bad. That's an issue I have. I feel like that's one of our most common critiques is we want to see more or different details. But yeah, I don't really understand what's happening here. And I think that's partly because I'm just not familiar with this field.
No, I don't think it's that. I mean, I think, if you were to tell me to read this and tell you what he did, without understanding what materials he was working with, it kind of loses meaning,
Yeah. Yeah, I get the feeling that maybe he used some Excel. So that's cool.
It's not a skill. It's not skilled in Excel.
You're right. That is interesting. They probably have some familiarity with Office. And then I'll come back up here and say, what was it? I like the phrasing you used. What was it? You want a characterization of the nanoparticles?
I mean, I can't remember exactly what I said, but I just want to know what they were working with, basically.
Sure. Yeah, I think I would like to hear more details about how it was automated, the data processing, right? Because I think that could mean, hey, I made a script that takes data and puts it on a graph. Like I made a graphing function.
Also, why wouldn't they do that on R?
I don't know.
Maybe they did.
Well, they do say Python. And maybe this is just a personal thing, but I think that should be a capital P.
I can definitely tell that's capital Chase.
Good. I'll say details. I know sarcasm when I hear it. I guess that takes us down here to the tutor experience. Now, someone had made some comments about showing that they can hold something down for a longer period of time than a semester. Does this satisfy y'all? Almost 2 years. It's not really a lot of time, but it is half their college time.
Why is the actress there?
I do think that's weird.
Honestly, I would remove like 2 of these bullet points. I mean, cool, you worked as a tutor, but
do we need to know it's a private school?
I don't know.
Well, I'm betting that they're naming the school. They just censored it for us.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
but I mean, if it's not Harvard, I don't care. Right? Like if it's a high school, does it matter?
Well, I think it's typical because this is work experience. I presume, like they went on campus and they were paid to be there. It's kind of typical to list your company name when you list your experience, which I also think is not necessarily like needed unless you're just going for the clout. And maybe there's a lot of clout with the private school in this particular area.
I don't know why. Maybe it's just my personal bias, but what you said, I completely agree with. And if it had been any entity, any company, I wouldn't have made the comment that I just made. But for some reason, tutoring just seems like more academia in my mind.
Maybe. I feel it's kind of goes the same way, right? Like if this were undergraduate studies, doing nanoparticle detection and measurement. I don't really care where you did it. It's cool if you did it at MIT. That's awesome. I would throw that on there for sure. But
well, I'm assuming it would probably be his alma mater or his alma mater, unless he did it over the summer at like an exchange type thing.
Yeah, I mean, here this is a given. You are right about that. Like, obviously, this was done at University of State. That's listed up here. But like you said, it could have been a summer thing, or it could have been part of a second degree or higher education at a different college. If that were the case, again, I don't think it'd be necessary, but could be nice to have. And then we were talking about removing 2 of these bullet points. Let's see, they say they created individual lesson plans for students of all ages. Well, I don't know what the school is, so I don't know if all ages means 15 to 19 or 12 to 15. I don't know what the range is there.
We may be able to tell that from the name of the school, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what school this is, but whoever reads it could probably say it's a high school, private school, or combination middle and high school. This is uncommon for engineers, says Grayson, but it could have been an REU.
What's an REU?
Research experience for undergraduates, says Grayson.
Oh, the nanoparticle thing? Yeah, right. That's where you go to a different school to do it. Correct?
Yeah, you go to another school and do research over the summer, again, says Grayson.
If that's what it is, they should identify it. But
yeah,
I
agreed.
think we're going to assume that it's not.
Yeah, because this was done in conjunction with all these other projects and in the semester that they graduated, so it probably wasn't anywhere else.
If that is actually a research experience, then I would probably erase work experience, just have experience, and replace that with the tutor. And just remove tutoring completely.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if it was undergrad research, in my opinion, I think that's the strongest thing they have here. Not necessarily the way they have it written now, but
right.
Everybody has to do a capstone project, and the side projects are cool, but doing legitimate research in the university is the strongest thing they have, in my opinion, on this resume.
Yeah, definitely agree.
And in the same light, I think we already talked about it, but having their capstone higher up as well.
And again, I think that depends on what they're aiming for. Because if they are somehow, for some reason, going after a mechanical engineering position, I think, again, in my opinion, this is fine. I mean, my capstone project is like at the bottom of my resume because it's just not relevant to anything I ever applied to.
I don't even put mine on it.
Exactly. You get better things eventually, too. All right. But assuming that they want to keep this down here, maybe they just have the space for it, so they're filling things out. They say they created the lesson plans. They help students boost grades, targeting the B+ to A range. They probably can't get metrics on how well they improve the grades. So I think listing a target is an okay compromise. I don't know what they could have done better here. Let's see, wrote detailed reports on student progress for parents and teachers. I think that's a good bullet point. Being able to write a report about an individual, say an employee's progress, giving them feedback. What do y'all think about that one? I think Grayson makes a good point about the second bullet point here. Don't you always want to aim for B+ or A, they say. Fair enough, yeah. It's not like you're going to tutor someone and say, I'm going to get you to a C and then we're going to stop there. Unless
I'm not
more money.
I'm not sure exactly who it was that spoke earlier, but I'm kind of in the same boat as them in kind of just removing this. you had mentioned, Jade, that you wanted to see some work experience. How do you feel about this as work experience as opposed to expanding upon their experience above?
I think that you definitely want to show work experience, especially since they don't have any internships, which I'm not a huge fan of internships, if you heard me talk before. But I mean, if you take this off, you have only class projects and zero experience doing anything.
Well,
So
the
I think this
undergrad
needs to stay.
research, the undergrad research was probably paid.
Maybe, and that undergrad research I could see being valuable to academia or academic adjacent, but I'm not sure how valuable that would be in a standard corporate environment.
Why
I'm
are you
not
not a fan
sure.
of internships?
A lot of places don't count them as experience, my workplace included. And so to me,
Interesting.
it seems like a waste of time.
Wow, because all I've ever heard from anyone I've spoken to is that internships are the gold standard, especially if they're industry internships.
Well,
Like if you-
so in my opinion, the internship is a form of networking, and so you play the political game inside your internship so that you can then become hired at the place that you interned, not to use that experience as something to get hired somewhere else. So there's a dynamic there, and if you want to play that game, then yes, it can be successful doing that. But just to take an internship from random company A and then go to other companies and say, "Look, I did this here," I'm not sure. I don't think that there's a lot of value in that. That's my opinion.
Fair enough.
I will say, as a potential counter anecdote, so pile of salt to your left, please. I had a recruiter actually call me because I had partially filled out an application, and they saw what I had filled out, and they called and they said, I think you should continue to apply for it. Why did you stop? And I told her, because I'm a senior who's graduating this semester, and I see that you need 5 years experience to apply for this. And she told me, with my 2 internships and being with the program that I was in for 4 years, that I could fudge it and say 5. She encouraged me to go ahead and put down, yes, I have 5 years experience.
This is yet another reason why I don't think you should put your education at the top.
Yeah.
My education's at the bottom.
Good on you. It's the right way to do it.
I will say, for my anecdote, I wasn't hired, so point to Jade goes back to Jade on that one. For education, if you have a relevant degree, like if this person wants to go into oil and gas, I think they should say they studied chemical engineering.
But yes, you can do that at the bottom, though, right? Like they read through your resume. Oh, this is great. Oh, they just started, but the resume's solid. Here, you open it up. Oh, I'm looking for 4 years experience. Oh, they just graduated. Trash can. Right? There you go. Didn't even look at it.
I think when I originally did my resume from a template, the education was at the bottom, and it's just been there ever since.
Well, I will agree that after you get your first job, you can boot that down to the bottom 9 times out of 10. And
Debatable, though. Debatable.
Debatable. Fair enough. Isn't everything here debatable? Late in the game,
Yeah,
disclaimer,
for sure.
This is all from a US-centric perspective. I'm not an expert, yada, yada. And yes, Grayson, if it takes you 6 years to graduate, you do have 6 years experience. Fight me.
Oh, Grayson is agreeing with the internships being the gold standard. Yeah, the only Reddit I hang out is Reddit Chemical Engineering, and they're basically like, you get 3 if you can, or co-op, or anything you can.
Yeah, though I will say for chemical engineering, how different can one plant be from another? So
That's true. That is
maybe
true.
it's more applicable for us.
Well, also, I'm old and did not do college in any sort of traditional way. So there's so your mileage may vary on a lot of my statements.
Hey man, no sweat. I dropped out of high school.
All seems to be working for you, so congratulations. Let's see. Sway says, think the internship only helps if the experience was good enough. I mean, we had interns who literally plotted graphs from Excel to MATLAB all summer, or just literally count and weigh thousands of battery cells. Yeah, and I think, Jay, you had a similar story, or maybe that was Laz, but someone was talking about how their interns don't ever do anything.
I had a buddy who did an internship at a national lab, and they had him in the metrology department. And all he did all day was calibrate accelerometers to a standard by dropping balls on them all fucking day.
That does sound tedious. And then Grayson says, it is definitely the best to get a job at the company you intern at. I agree. But it also has a non-zero value to other employers because it makes you look like you are try hard, desired, capable, and have some experience doing, quote, on the job, end quote, engineering. Best as in easiest, assuming good intern.
And you didn't get any HR complaints, presumably.
Well, we just don't tell them about that. Okay. Well, overall, how do we feel?
I feel like you've given them some good advice. I think the second edition, after they edit this, would still need some refinement, but I agree with everything you've written.
I still feel like there's a big piece that we're not seeing.
But how do you say that, you know?
What do you mean by a big piece?
Well, all of these projects are from the last semester. You know, where is their other work experience? Do they have any? What was their capstone? What's their GPA? Everything we've been talking about. There's a whole, like second half of this resume that we're just sort of guessing at.
Like I said, the impression I get from this resume is they didn't do well in school. They were panicking their last semester of their senior year that they weren't going to get a job and crammed in as much crap as they could. Just being blunt.
Which, if that is the case, I do still think that's somewhat impressive, given how much they got done here. I mean, there's a lot more I'd like to know about. But, I mean, that's 4 decent projects that would, on their own, each have, that would be great experience, I think. But I agree with you, Jade, saying that there's a lot here, a lot of questions raised. It feels like a lot of context is missing. And I want to know what they did in RStudio.
They probably did it in their DOE class.
What about Solidworks? What do they model?
Yeah, that's the one that doesn't make sense to me because I don't think that's standard. Did you do any SolidWorks, Chase?
Chase is a SolidWorks Pro.
No. In school.
In
Also
school,
debatable.
that was always weird to me. We never used SolidWorks. Maybe it's changed now. We never used it, but
No, I don't think it's changed.
Well, probably not. But every computer in our lab that was specific to it, like you could only get into this room if you were a chemical engineering student or professor. Every single computer had a seat of SolidWorks, and in them they had pre-made models of some tanks and pipes, as if at some point we did or we were going to model up a model of a plant. But we never did anything like that. We just had access to it. And I never really even saw the point in having that to begin with.
They probably had some extra budget.
Maybe. But I mean, that was like 50, 60 seats of Solidworks just sitting there. Wow.
I mean, they probably. I don't think you can buy it by the seat, right? They probably just bought a shitload for the whole university.
Yeah, maybe it's different for an academic license. I know my company, we have so many licenses, and you have to be assigned a license at your station. Maybe it can be taken away and you can still use the software, but to get it, you have to have a license at least. Maybe you can just hop around with one. Plus, it was all networked, I think. So it could just be like, hey, we have 50 seats, and if 60 computers are on, then 10 of them don't get an active license. That could be the case. Whatever it may be. Yeah, I'd like to see some experience that lists these. And
Did you use R in DOE?
no.
Did they make you take a DOE class?
Tell me what DOE is, and I'll tell you.
Design of experiments.
Kind of, yes. We had Chemical Engineering Lab 1 and 2, and in Chemical Engineering Lab 2, we designed our final experiment. So there's that. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Y'all are welcome to stay around, and we can keep talking about other things, or, you know, what else we could do differently with the resume. But I think for the purpose of the video, we've used up more than enough time, and we have plenty of good feedback here for anyone who might be interested in it. And I appreciate the participation, again, especially with the robotic arm and getting my brain jogged on the PID controller. Y'all have been a great help here. And that's all I have for y'all. Time to ping Schrodinger's pig. Turn off the video. Cut it. Play the outro.
Cheers.